Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the latest episode of the New Playbook podcast. The reason I wanted Nick to be on this podcast is not because he runs a mental health clinic. A lot of people, honestly, a lot of people do that. It's because he's the only clinic CEO that we have talked that he's running two Mac Minis at his house, running local AI models to keep his staff out of ChatGPT. And we know that we got onto a discovery call 2 weeks back, and I showed him that what we have been building. Instead of politely nodding to what we have been building, he opened his screen and showed us his command center. And I sat there and I was like, wow, is this the guy the other founders are going to being studying in the next 2 years? So Nick, welcome to the podcast, man. Thanks for taking the time out for the podcast.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Before LA, before AI, before your company, what got you into this mental health space, in the very first place? Was there a moment or was it more like a slow pull?
Probably a little bit of both, to be honest. I came from like I started working for a treatment center in the addiction world when I was about 22 years old. It started out just being like kind of an errand boy for the office, and then within about 3 years, I helped turn the company around and became CFO of the company. Started I was there when we did the transition from like paper to like EMR, like a full-on electronic medical records, and I was a big part of that transition. And actually during that transition was when I got really big into the tech side of things and saw the opportunity to basically get rid of all of the paperwork and the headaches that clinicians and staff have to do on a regular daily basis. The repetitive stuff that just seems like it just takes away time from the actually spending time with the clients and the patients. And so right then and there, I knew like this was like something that I wanted to always be a part of. Anything that was going to change and revolutionize client care and have a direct impact for staff so that they can spend the necessary time with their clients and their patients. And so that kind of happened. And then from there, when I was about 27, I decided to branch out and open up my own treatment center up here in Port St. Lucie, Florida, and did that for till about 31. And it was great. Had a great time. Realized though very quickly that I saw something in mental health that was starting to change. I got introduced to psychedelics myself, from personal stuff, and then saw it revolutionizing kind of the industry and had an opportunity to get out of the treatment center. And my wife and I decided to open up a ketamine clinic here in South Florida. And then from there, we've had it now for 8 years, almost nine. And from that, I kind of got even more into the heavier into the tech space with it, because my whole goal was to, from when a patient comes in or a client comes in, I only wanted to spend 7 to 12 minutes of max admin work on them, no matter what. Like that's their whole life cycle as a client and as a patient. I want everyone in my staff to only spend, max 12 minutes. And so I tried to, even early on, before the ChatGPTs and before all the clouds and all that, I was trying to automate and develop systems that allowed us to kind of treat people with the push of a button. And mostly it was because I didn't have the resources, I didn't have the money to do a lot of things where, I was one person trying to play four different roles. And so was my wife at that time. And so very early on, we tried to keep things very simple and tried to have certain systems automated. And very early on, we were using, I'm sure you guys are familiar with like Go High Level as a CRM. And then we were linking that into our EMR and then creating automations from that and trying to like where we could push a button and then the patient would end up in our EMR. And so we were trying to, again, always trying to leverage the tech at the current moment and put it into our systems. And so then her and I, because of our company, Alay Health and Wellness, because of that company and the success we've had with it, and again, it's a small company. We've kept it small on purpose because again, the psychedelic space or the ketamine space is not an easy business to kind of manage, especially now with like, well, now that they're having Spravato, which has actually been a game changer for us, where we can take insurance and it's good. There's a lot of benefits to that, but also with insurance comes its own headaches and its own like new systems. But because of that opportunity from Alay, my wife and I ended up becoming basically, I guess, consultants in this space, and we started also working for another company called Newpath Mind. So there's kind of like two companies, and at Newpath, I guess I'm technically the COO of Newpath, still the CEO of Alay, but at Alay, I kind of have everything pretty much automated. I have my own COO over at Alay who kind of manages everything for me. So I spend about maybe an hour a week on things for that company. But now I'm really trying to grow this New Path company, and it's been a neat situation because New Path, they have the financial means to kind of like grow and expand and do so without like, when you're doing it yourself, there's a lot of like liability, headache. You're always worried about the finances. And so now we're kind of in a really unique position with New Path to kind of scale and grow. And yeah, so I don't know if that answered the question, but
No, I did. It did answer a lot of questions. So, I really wanted to, expand you upon the delegation part, how you were able to delegate all these tasks and, finally being able to automate the business. I think a lot of business owners, that are for sure going to listen to this podcast can relate to that feeling because, the burnout, they want to actually get themselves out of the business. They want to spend more time with their family, but they're not being able to because they don't know how to do that, right? Before we jump towards the delegation part, because I think it's really 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 very important for all the business owners, because I think it requires you to think very differently as usually think into your daily operations. So before we jump to that part, I think I have a very important question, that you were running a business with your wife, and most people would say don't do it. What made you, and what made it work for you guys?
yeah, it's kind of funny. What made it work, you know, again, the us just realizing that no matter what happened, we were on the same team. And to, to us, that was very important. Like, yes, most people like, we were what, I think 3 years into our marriage, and we decided to open up a business with like the little bit of money that we had at that time. Yeah, it was a little crazy, but we both had a passion for it. But I think bigger than that was our ability to go, hey, no matter what happens, we're on the same team. We don't need to agree on everything. But listen, you know the medical side of things, I know the operation side of things, and I'm gonna trust you, you're gonna trust me. And that's kind of how we made it work. And so constantly having that that open door communication, which is something, and again, it's not easy. I'm making it sound like, oh, we had everything figured out. No, no, no. There's fights, there's yelling, there's screaming, there's going at it, kind of like any normal type of business, but a startup, and it was not easy, especially too. I think we were 9 months open, and then COVID hit, so we
Yeah.
had a lot there was a lot of back and forth on if we wanted to keep the office open. And I got to give her a lot of credit. She was the one that pushed us, basically, hey, let's keep it open. I got a feeling that after COVID, this is going to be a big, big thing. And so we kind of did it. I mean, we did that. And at the same time, we were both like kind of working like other jobs just to kind of make ends meet. And then within about, 3 years, I remember it was like 3 years after that, we were finally in a position where we were making enough to kind of both put full, like both feet in and really go hard into our business. And we've been fortunate to still be open, make a little bit of money while we've been open, and then kind of grow and expand our services. Now she speaks at the American Society of Ketamine Physicians conferences every year. We're a big part of that. We try and do a lot of stuff in the community. So there's just been a lot of we've had a lot of unique and really exciting opportunities by staying open and doing this. So
Really interesting story, and I think the only question that I have from all this conversation, and especially about the recent story that you told me, is what do you think about work-life balance, Nick?
Yeah. What do I think? I don't. Sometimes I don't know if it exists. You know, it
Is there
is.
something like work-life balance?
Yeah. Yeah. No. 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 It is. It is something that is. It is very. It is, first of all, it's super important at the end of the day. You do need to have a work life balance. In some regards, I'm fortunate because my wife and I have such a passion for what we do, and even like we also have two kids as well. And again, part of we brought our kids into the business as well. I even had my daughter working at the business for a little bit at times, and one thing we did realize though that like it's really cool when you're I was fortunate because like working with my wife, like when would go out and do stuff, we would end up coming up with ideas and different things, and we'd be like on a vacation, and all of a sudden we're like, oh crap, like, this is a good idea. Let's incorporate this. And so again, it is that, but then also we had the boundaries at certain times to go like, listen, like we're not going to talk about work, not going to do anything. And I think we till this day, like we still take like one day. Sometimes it's Sunday, sometimes it's Monday where we just turn off our phones completely and we don't, whatever happens, happens. But we really try and make the time for us to just kind of be present with each other. And that has been important. But and I can even remember it distinctly and like when we were first starting off, I mean, there wasn't work-life balance. I mean, the balance was just trying to survive and survive financially. And then the balance became more about like, oh, crap, like how do we make sure to keep our like marriage on point? How do we make sure to take care of the kids? And so it kind of all kind of like it actually got hazy. It kind of got very meshed together, and we again, but that communication and that realizing like, hey, we're on the same team became so important to us. And now to this day, like I said, man, taking time away from the screens, from the work, from all the like noise, and a lot of it is noise. And even now with like these new tools that are coming out, AI tools and stuff, like you have to sometimes sit down and like do a full assessment of like, all right, do I actually need this? Is this actually valuable? Is this something like we need to be focused on? And the reality is a lot of it, no, you don't. Like it's just noise. And sorting through the noise is like that's a skill I'm realizing still to this day. Like even when you jump on to like ChatGPT or Claude or whatever AI tools you use, it's the question's always like, well, what are you using it for? Why are you doing this? If it's not building systems and things to make my life easier, then like I'm not, there's no point to using it in my head. That's just kind of where I've landed. But yeah,
Yeah, really, really interesting point. And I think alongside delegation, I think one really important thing that a lot of people can, you know, relate to you, especially is about how you mentioned about the mental models, right? That how the clarity of thought is basically the thing that translates into your prompts. So if you don't actually understand the problem, you will never be able to build the right solution for that, right? And I think a lot of people don't know that. They think that he can prompt everything out, and finally you will be able to build a good solution from that. So can you expand the thoughts upon that thing, right? The about what mental model that you use, for, I would say, addressing and breaking the problem in a more like a chewable way, and then you can give that as a prompt to the AI model.
sure. And maybe this will answer the question, but it was more about like, doing what I do within healthcare and what my wife does. She's the nurse practitioner. I had to take a step back and go, what are the things that we're kind of doing on repeat daily? What are the things that we're just constantly like always having to do? Like, and again, it could be like such a boring, simple task, but it would be like, all right, for every patient, we need to make sure to get their like insurance information or whatever the 10 things are that we need to do or get. And so it was taking things like that and then putting it into these like LLMs and these like this was how it started, and just putting them into the system and then having it create kind of like what's the workflow and what's the system that would be the most efficient, and then what are like the checklists. So like now my staff, like if they're going to make a phone call, here's like the checklist, they can now see it in real time, and they even know exactly like what to say to a patient when they have certain questions or things. And so it was really about taking those like things that we do on repeat, putting them into these models, and then having the models spit out like, hey, this is the better way to do it, or here's the checklist, or here's the new standard operating procedure. And that's really kind of how it started. And then from even there, it became more of like, now how do we take that and actually build? Now it's helping us build the systems and create the agents that can now do a lot of this work for us, and do it in a way that is HIPAA compliant, because that's another piece of it within my business. But yeah, that's again that's kind of, yeah, where I'm at with it.
I think this is really important. So, for those people who are listening, especially the business operators, and founders and the owners, and who also want to automate their businesses, want to basically take the full control of these AI models out there. So, what's your advice for them? How can they start? I think you mentioned about a really important thing, and that is basically documenting your whole business workflows, right? So, yeah, please expand upon that.
Yeah, I guess like what I would do or recommend to anyone is writing out what are the boring simple things that you have to do on a day-to-day basis, and is it something that you can automate, and really taking the time to like evaluate and look at what you're doing. And if it's one of these things that you're doing this every day, and it's kind of like tedious. It's taking up, let's say, like 2 hours of work a day. If you could give that off to an agent or to an AI tool, does that now take the workload off of you? And again, it doesn't have to be anything like shiny or flashy. Like this is something that can be like super simple. And then when it takes that, then once you put it into your like models or whatever you do, you start then like taking the time to evaluate it, and you can start fine tuning it and like really seeing like, is this now something that I can have a staff member? Because I still think there's the human element's important, in the sense of having a staff member to at least oversee it and kind of ban the machines, right? Like that's still an important part of it. But instead of them spending 2 hours, they're now spending 10 minutes, like making sure that this is on point. Because that's also another part of it, that you got to kind of make sure there's a lot of fine tuning, especially when you're kind of using your own like open source like LLMs to kind of do certain things, especially in the healthcare space. So it is about like making sure you're providing the proper input, but that you're getting the output that that is valuable to you.
Really, really thoughtful. I think this is a really important point. That I want all the people who are listening to be really attentive about that, and that is about how to basically delegate the business in a way that you not only scale that out, but also it not takes more time from your schedule now. And I think you already mentioned about that now, that your COO, your operation guy is basically handling everything, and you are putting less than an hour a week into that. And I think this is the debate that me and Alex, we're already having, with each passing day, about how we can finally delegate our business in a way that without losing the essence and the quality of our operations. So this is the thing that I'm super genuinely interested to learn from you. How you were able to basically, I would say, build those SOPs and workflows that not without, I would say, compromising on quality of the workflows. You were being able to automate everything, and now business is not only just running, it's not surviving, but also scaling and growing, and reaching to the next levels. Without taking more of time from your schedule.
Yeah, so can you ask the question again? I want to make sure I got it.
Yeah, so I wanted to basically understand about the delegation part. How you have been able to delegate, because a lot of people, this is the dream lifestyle, right? Every business owner on earth, who is running some sort of business, they want to delegate. They want to delegate in a way that they don't want to compromise on quality of their operations. So you have been able to delegate, and the business is not surviving, but it's growing, it's scaling with each passing day, and it doesn't require more time from your schedule now. So how you are being able to delegate, and what were the choices that you made? How did you hire those people? How you build those workflows? I want you to explain those things, for all the people that are listening to the podcast.
Sure. Oh, you guys are gonna this is kind of funny. So this happened. So this is kind of really neat. So about 2 years ago, I had a unique opportunity to work with a company called Intelligent. Intelligent is it's an AI platform. It's HIPAA secure and all got all the bells and whistles. A very awesome program. And what ended up happening was because of it, I was able to do everything was HIPAA secure within this platform, and everything's really nice. But what it was bigger, what was even bigger and better, was that I could have all my staff on the platform, and I could see how they were using AI as well. And what was kind of unique and cool with it was like, well, you know how like Coda or ChatGPT has like workspaces, and you can like have so it was like similar to that. And what ended up happening is so two years ago, I'm a gamer, so I like video games, and so I'm playing my video games, and I think I was playing the Ghost of Yoshima or whatever. It doesn't matter, but I was playing it. It's like one of my favorite games, and while I was playing, I had this idea of, and I'll tell you why this is going to be important here in a minute. But I had this idea of like, all right, I can talk to these let me talk to this my LLM model and have it while I'm playing the video games. It helped me create and redo all of my policies and procedures right then and there, just by talking to it. And right then and there, I'm like, oh man, this is like really cool because I can like play video games and I can do my work at the same time. And so then after that, it kind of turned into where okay, now that I'm able to like create these like workflows and these policies and procedures, how then do I want to take that and then provide it to my staff? So I realized, okay, now I can create agents, or you can call them like chatbots or whatever you want to call them, where my staff could go into something and ask it a question about anything in the business. Like, let's say they had a question about, like, we do for Spravato. So there's a lot of regulations. There's this thing called REMS and whatever that you got to like sign people up. So now if someone had a question about like, how do I get someone approved for Spravato? They could literally just ask that bot like a question, and it would like come up exactly how like I would answer it. So I started removing myself from the business, from all operational things. We're now in a giant database, which you can get from like Obsidian and you can get from like these other things, but it was a giant database that had all of my, because again, it's like big deal. Anyone can create policies and procedures. Like we can do that in our sleep now, right? I can talk to the thing, it'll create perfect policies. The trick was though to how to create it in a way where now I can have the someone ask it a question, like the chat, like a question, and have it source through exactly how like we have our systems and workflows that are specifically towards us. So I call it like I guess you call it a small learning language model. That's like literally like perfect for how like I want my business to run and how I do things operationally. And so it would so it got to a point where now I could train staff in such a nice, simple, easy way because I removed myself from it. So, like for instance, even if I have a new staff like come on, I press a button, it creates the whole training for that staff based on their position. So I'm now like the goal was to remove myself. Not only that, I was able to remove it from the clinical and the medical aspect where now all of my wife's ability, like I call it, her name's Katie. So we created a Katie bot like where basically she is if you have any like medical or clinical questions it goes to that. Not only that, but I was fortunate because I knew a little bit about programming, and I took the API from this it's called Brave. So it also sources 20 of the most up-to-date and current medical journals as well. So now if you ask them a question about anything like someone they want to do ketamine, but they also are on, let's call it like a benzodiazepine and like Adderall or whatever, they can literally type it up in the thing and it will give them the most up-to-date journal articles as to what's going on. Well, also providing with what Katie also has learned over the years as well. So it's all in one giant database, like that's constantly like updating in real time and taking her information plus the information from these medical journals. And it's like sourcing the data and it's providing like the perfect, like, hey, I don't want to say perfect like treatment plan, but it's like probably the most up to date treatment plan. Then on top of it, we use the Freed app where they like my staff walk into a room, they push a button, records the conversation, creates the perfect note. That note then gets put in through another system that we developed, and it literally sorts it out perfectly for the insurance company so that we get paid every time. So it's again, it was so my whole goal was to like, how do we make it so my wife and I aren't the ones having to answer questions all the time? You know, like we were getting asked, that's not a bad thing, but when you're like just starting out, my wife and I are the main people in the business. Everyone has a question, everyone needs you, everyone, there's always something that's going wrong. Now it's set up in a way where I even have the client, like we have a personal client bots for the clients, so they can even ask like questions. Doesn't give them medical advice, but gives them enough so that they don't need to bother us. And so it was all about like, cool. Now, how do we remove ourselves? And then I created a layer where I have my operations guy at Alay, where now he's the one that's like kind of in charge and like running it and setting up like I guess these machines or these AI tools in a way where he's like, yeah, Nick, this is great. Now I'm not having to be the one that answers it either. Now I'm just telling the staff to go over here, type it in, and they're getting the basically the perfect information. And we're now able to hire staff very quickly, provide the trainings very quickly, and we're kind of like slowly removing ourselves from the business, but at the same time we set up the whole like this whole small learning language model that's like literally the brains and operations of our business, and it's become a real asset. Like it's a true asset. So if we're to sell the company, like yeah, you're going to also be buying that too. And so it's not just another AI tool, it's our own personal like small learning language model specifically built for like ketamine practices or whatever it is, psychiatric practices, and is providing in real time like the most up to date information, and it's powerful. So the delegation now is more even of like, you know, how do we hire people? Well, we find, there is a hiring process, we meet with people, but we can also even take that and automate some of that where we're running it through, hey, is this person going to work with our systems? Like my big thing is like, I don't care who you are. I just need to make sure you know how to use the computer and have a little bit of like background in AI and are comfortable like talking to like an LLM or SLM, you know what I mean? And that became so powerful because now my staff have this like it's almost like an HR database. And I think I might have shown you guys some of it, but there's this whole HR component to it where it sources all of our SOPs, all of our like any information you need to like hire someone. And it's not just taking the operations, but it's also taking the clinical and medical side of things. And that to me has become such a powerful tool because that's how me and my wife remove ourselves from the business and allow for my team now to, hey, come on, they know exactly what to use, they know where to go with it. And then if there's and in real time I can see it's so cool because I can see what my staff are using it for and who's asking it what. And like, I tell them it's not me like spying on them. It's not for spying purposes. It's more for like, I want to know how they're using it and then how I can make it better. And so now I'm like fine tuning it, adding, new policies and procedures to it when we have changes or new services. And so it's just this constantly like updating, and my staff have become so good at having now these resources where they love working with us because they've again their whole thing is like, I want them to spend time with the patient. That face to face is very important for the work that we do, and so I want them to do that, and now they can do it without having to worry about all their like admin work. And so yeah, that kind of maybe answers the question in a long roundabout way.
Yeah, I think now you have, I would say, promoted from COO to more like a CTO role. Now you are more like in the
Yeah.
AI world. So yeah, I with a lot of blessing. Yeah, Alex, do you want to add something?
No, I think fascinating. You said a couple of points that I think that not too many people are thinking right now. And it's interesting how you can talk about these and it's a natural thing for you, but one thing that maybe a lot of people yet in business haven't put in perspective is the fact that AI can actually bring more value, right, to their business, right, as you are able to put the business in autopilot. then the business is worth more when you're not able, when you don't have to be completely involved in the business. So it's quite interesting how I would say in the early stages, and AI has been for a while, right? I think that we just went through that exponential curve of adoption in the last 12 months, in my opinion, right? This is when agentic AI just ignited, right? But but yeah, I mean, I think that that's the key, right? I think that when you are building a business, and we can talk about quality of life or a balanced life, but we're still always building, right? There's always this mental engagement. But when you're able to build something that just operates on its own, then that's the real value to the business, right? So it's
Yeah.
interesting how you came up with this, and I mean, point. I mean, that's only 0.1% of people that are really getting this. You know what I mean? So
Yeah. Well, and you bring up a good point too, because that was like I had a guy when I was in my early 20s. He was like uh, brilliant dude. He was in the banking industry, and he basically told me, he's like, Nick, like, he's like, it was kind of funny, but he's like, you don't want to be the doctor, or you don't want to be a lawyer. You want to be the guy that owns those people, and you want to be the guy that can like have you manage. You're running a business, but you're not. You could get hit by a bus tomorrow, and the business would still run without you, and
mhm.
there would be no issues from that. Like, yes, it would be sad. Yes, you'd have whatever, a funeral, whatever. It would be sad. But at the end of the day, the business runs completely without you. He's like, that's how you know you have a valuable business and a service if you can have it. And so everything I have done since I was talked to that guy, I remember it was my early 20s. It's like building systems that allow the company to survive without me and my wife. And and with AI, it's now possible.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. Where do you think, and right now I think we're discovering how, you know, large language models, it's going to become a commodity, right? We're already hearing that, right? Obviously, I think that a lot of the attention is going on into security, right? We understand that we need to have certain safeguards, right? Because our data, needs to be protected. Data is the new. Well, you
Yeah.
mentioned it in the last conversation, the new gold. I'd say, in a way, the new oil, right? That's kind of. I mean, our data is what we are, basically. That's our business, right? So, but where do you, in your eyes, how is this? What's the next stage in AI adoption? What do you feel it's going to be changing when we deploy some of these solutions, right, to be able to operate our business? And have you found that safeguard, right? Do you run local models? Do you run open models, or is this something that you are already thinking about, or how you really protect your data and your information?
Yeah, that's a great question. And yeah, I mean, there's so much to unpack there with that.
Yeah.
But yeah, yeah, like I use sometimes I use, especially for HIPAA compliant stuff, like everything is now through those like open source, like local models that I use, and I embed them into these like softwares that I built. But more importantly, like what I did was I found there's a there's a EMR company that is basically, it's called Canvas, but it's like basically a platform that you can go in and vibe code your own EMR in a completely secure system. So it's like so something like that, which now allows me to take actually Claude, put Claude in there, or OpenAI or ChatGPT in there, and it's secure. And it's like on that type of platform. And so to me, like, that was always a big issue, because I was trying to figure out like, how can we make sure our stuff is secure? And so I have it also set up to where there's certain information or certain things, like for policies and procedures, who cares what you use? You can use like whatever, it doesn't matter, But then for any like, PHI or HIPAA compliant like data, that goes no matter what, it automatically is set up. So you're using like these, like I guess the local models or the open source models that are kind of like you're not now sharing information. It's not going to the internet. And it's like I built it within my own like software. And so even right now, I'm now excited because I transitioned to this other EMR where that EMR is now my HIPAA secure type of system where I can put everything else that I have built within that system. And I'm realizing like those are the things I'm thinking about where at the end of the day, like, you guys and AI companies and things like that, you guys are almost you guys are in the service business. If at the end of the day, like, yes, you can build tools, yeah, yeah, but people like me, I mean, I'm fortunate, but it'd be like CEOs of business are going to need like people like you guys to where like, hey, I need some ideas as to like how to get the system up or do it where it's like HIPAA secure. And da, da, da. So you guys are kind of almost like in this cool consulting service business where you guys are almost fractional CTOs in some cool way, where you guys are really helping the business owners to think of like what systems they can do in a way that's like secure and set up so like they're not having to think about it because the security and the safety aspect of it, this is, I mean, that's going to be huge. Like, how do you guys like take like whatever the business owners are doing? Because there's going to be like, no matter what business it is, there's going to be like personal data that's going to be out there. And so, how do you make sure that it's secure? Also, at the same time, even myself, like, eh, there's a lot of tools I don't know how to use, like, but that could probably be very valuable for me. And having people like you guys like come and say, "Hey, Nick, you guys think of this?" Like, yeah, that I think that's going to be very powerful, and so I think the world is going to be changing and needing people where how you have like IT companies for your internet and stuff, and you'll have like people help you set up your phones, your Wi-Fi, and all that. It's going to be the same thing, I think, with AI. I really do. Like, I really think that's the way it's going, and I think a lot of businesses like need that. Like, even myself, I get asked all the time, like, Nick, where would I start with my AI, or what would I do with this? And I'm always like, I mean, I can sit there and tell them, but I mean, like, honestly, like now I'm like, you gotta pay me. Like, there's a whole level to it, and there's a lot to it, but I think that's where people like you guys come into play, where you can now sit there but bigger than that, it's like it's going to be all about like I don't know how to word it, but I guess it would be like privatizing AI in some regards, where it's like they need their personal it's for them personally, like, or their specific business. Like, I don't even care what type of business it is. It could be a roofing business or whatever business it is, but they need something that works for them with their workflows. And each one of those roofing businesses is different. So it's never going to be like one size fits all. And I think that's where we're going to have to get out of it. It's like anyone can download Claude and use Claude, like, cool. But it's like, take
Right.
that, you got to keep going with it and building like, what are the systems that I need to build that are specifically for me and then specifically for my industry. And then that will like, so again, I think it's going to be coming in like where these small learning language models that are like in a secure like type of setting is going to become like, I mean, that's going to be so valuable on so many levels.
Yeah. No, totally. I think that's exactly where we've been, and this is a conversation we've been having. But at the end of the day, we're moving. It's moving more towards you know, that level of consciousness, whether everybody wants to understand that nobody's going to steal their business, and we try to align ourselves as AI transformational partners, right? Because AI is out there and there's so much of it, right? Meaning there's so many tools and you can, the approach can be limitless at this point. But what's really going to move the needle for you? What's really going to work for you? What's customizable? And then what's personalized, right? And I think that everything in this new era is going to move into that. How can I make the AI my AI, right? Or how can I solve my problems, right? So uniquely, I think that's where we're heading on.
I think that's the way to go. I think a lot of people don't, I think a lot of people too are scared and confused. It's very confusing. Like, yeah, and no matter what AI tools are out there, none of them are specifically towards your business. Yeah, they might
Yeah.
say like, "Hey, we do this," but they're not. They don't know you, and so like that's where again, the service industry, where you guys will basically be able to white label products in some regards. Like I don't know if I'm making sense, but they do that with high level all the time and those type of things. And so now you got like people who, bot press or whatever, like retail AI, like all the cool tools that are out there. But like at the end of the day, business owners like me, I don't want to manage those. Like I don't know where to start. Like I need someone to kind of like help me and set up those systems that are specifically towards me. And so you guys become like a big deal. And it's like it's almost like an extra. I don't want to say an extra, but there's so much value to it because you could where people might be scared. Oh my God, it costs like $25,000 to do this like program or whatever it is. But at the end of the day, that $25,000 is an investment onto like, well, now I got like a whole personal AI thing where I'm now making, $150,000. Like, and there's just so much value to that.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Nick, for, I would say, for this interesting conversation. And I think this is one of the most interesting conversation that we ever had on this podcast because a lot of people that we have met so far, they're more like non-technical peeps. But I think, we were craving for this more like a technical information, especially about how you were being able to automate everything out. And I think we can always, record another podcast going deeper into a more specific product because I think there are a lot of different dimensions that we can talk about, this whole AI thing. I will conclude the podcast with one last question from our side, and that will be, what's the one advice that you're going to give to the version of yourself who is just starting out LA?
Yeah, I guess one of the things I would say to myself is don't get distracted by the shiny new things and all the things you see on Twitter or X and Instagram that sound really cool and neat. Don't listen to the noise. Take a step back and you know what, for a lot of businesses it's going to be the boring things that are going to really help get you to the next level. So I guess I would just tell myself, because I got sidetracked quite a bit on different things and different tools. And but no, taking the time to really assess what it is that you need, and every time that you use an AI tool, like ask yourself, is this something I actually like need to be doing, and is this actually creating a new system for me, or is this just extra work that I think is cool? Like that's, I guess, what I would. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Nick, for taking time out for this.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Alex.
Awesome. No, thank you again. And listen, again, we can be talking about plenty of subjects in the
Yeah.
matter. We'll probably save it for another time. But Nick, we really appreciate again you sharing with us a little bit of your approach, sharing with us, how your view on AI, and looking forward to again continuing to hopefully collaborate in some sort of way. So we really appreciate everything you've done for us, and anything that we can do for you, we're here for you. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
You got it.